Today, I'm excited to speak with Neil Distolfo. Neil is a New York City-based writer, teacher, performer, and meditation instructor. He is a graduate of MNDFL Meditation's 500-hour advanced teaching training program and leads weekly classes at MNDFL's Greenwich Village studio, where he also serves as Coordinator of LGBTQ Programs. Neil is also an adjunct professor at Pace University, where he teaches mindfulness to undergraduates in the School of Performing Arts and works privately with middle and high school students with learning and/or executive functioning challenges. Neil earned a BA in political science from Middlebury College and an MFA from Columbia University. Neil, thank you so much for speaking with me today.
Yay, thanks for having me.
I'm very excited. So for people watching, I'm going to begin with doing a question and answer with Neil, and then he is going to lead us all in a guided meditation. So my first question is just generally, tell me a little bit about your background in mindfulness. Why did you decide to get into this profession? Why are you still doing it today?
Yeah, I think mindfulness is something that I first came to in grad school. I studied theater at Columbia. I got my master's there. Our teachers, specifically voice teachers, would talk mindfulness and relaxation. So this idea of being present, and then if I'm relaxed enough, I can just allow whatever impulses come through, or just to be able to listen and respond authentically. So that's where I first started to cultivate it. And then I found this formal meditation practice when I found the studio where I trained mindful. I'd previously thought that meditation was ascribed to spiritual practice, and as someone that doesn't or wasn't raised with religion, I didn't really have a way into meditation in that way. So when I found mindful, and it was secular practice, so meaning it's mindfulness meditation separate from any sort of religion or spirituality, was really excited to learn more. And then really what keeps me going, one is the felt benefits of it. So reduced stress, ability to concentrate, ability to be present with my loved ones and with the creative things that I want to do. And then two would be all the science behind it that's supporting it. So showing that with some consistency, we're actually able to retrain the brain and carve new neural pathways. And they're showing that the benefits of a mindfulness practice, kind of like the one that we'll do today, with some consistency, if you were to practice this for, let's say, 6 weeks, the way that your brain, especially you guys as like young folks, the way that your brain starts to develop, that progress and that training doesn't leave you. So just with just like 6 weeks of commitment to a practice, parts of the brain are shifting that you'll have those benefits for the rest of their life, is what studies are showing.
Wow, thank you so much. I really found what you said about the difference between religious and secular practices really interesting. And sort of off of that, I was actually wondering if there's any sort of general group of people that you're often teaching mindfulness to. So that can be male versus female versus gender nonconforming, or completely unrelating to gender, about the religious practices they often do, or is it often just young children or adults that want to come to your classes? Or what this podcast is about, do you often notice that it's just all people or people that generally struggle with anxiety?
I think definitely folks with anxiety are the most open, I would say. They're coming with kind of an acute need. So we're already experiencing some discomfort, and we're like, yeah, I would like to deal with this. What's going on? So I would say that when I'm teaching at the studio mindful, what we see are just all types of folks, especially folks that are just hearing about mindfulness. They're just curious. They might have really stressful jobs, especially here in New York. We see a lot of, I do a lot of meditation with companies. So I'll like go to companies, yeah, and work with really high performing individuals and executives and show them mindfulness techniques to handle their stress and maybe show up a little bit better for their jobs and their employees. I also teach at a college, so I work with a lot of like young people, college kids. Um, and then I lead LGBTQ programs at Mindful. So I prior to our current reality was leading a weekly sit for our LGBTQ community. But I would say that the practices really can meet anyone wherever they are.
Mhm.
Um, Certainly, if you are already experiencing anxiety, I would shift the practice a little bit more. So there are very specific practices that we can do for folks with anxiety that you can practice them when you're not experiencing anxiety or a panic attack, but they give you the tools so that when you do experience a panic attack, this is something that you could do.
That makes sense. And I was actually just about to ask you if mindfulness is a practice that should happen all the time, or can it be used just as a response to having an anxiety attack or feeling really anxious? And sort of what is the best, quote unquote, best practice of mindfulness?
Yeah, that's such a great question. So I'll also distinguish between mindfulness and meditation. So, meditation, like what we'll do, is the formal practice of you come to stillness and you don't do anything but whatever practice you have said you're going to do. We're going to do a practice that uses the breath as what's called your object of meditation. So, it's where you're going to place your awareness. So meditation is something that you would formally do, let's say at the start of your day or in the afternoon or in the evening. Mindfulness is just bringing your awareness and non-judgment to anything that you do.
Okay.
So you can mindfully do the dishes. You can, like, this is wild. You can mindfully scroll Instagram. You can, like, mindfully eat a meal. So those are like, so mindfulness is a training of just bringing your awareness. And then once you notice what's going on, just not judging. Our minds are habituated to, determine whether something's good or bad, especially our own behavior. So, especially when I work with younger people and students, there's so much that we're programmed in schools to understand as good or bad, or this means you're succeeding or this means you're failing. And when we bring non judgment to something, it just means that we're allowing it.
Mhm.
Um, but to say, so the practice that we'll do works with the breath. And then a great thing to do when you're having an anxiety attack um, is to really ground into the body and what's happening right now. So um, bringing the breath into the body by slightly exaggerating the breath and then letting your awareness rest here so that you start to develop a sense of, oh, I can place my awareness on something other than my anxiety, other than the thoughts and the emotions that are really bothering me right now. And in that way, you start to bring yourself to a sense of, I'm actually okay. Like I've got enough breath, I've got a healthy body. My mind might be telling me that I'm in danger, but I'm okay.
Okay, that makes sense. And again, sort of off of that, have you noticed that the students or adults or whomever you work with that do suffer from anxiety, if you've worked with them for a long time, have you seen their practices really improve their state of mind and improve their mental health?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that, as far as seeing the benefits of meditation, that's kind of the most exciting thing. I would say to some extent, you get out what you put in. So if folks are really dedicating themselves, doesn't mean you have to sit for 20 or 30 minutes. Studies are showing that just 8 to 12 minutes of a consistent meditation practice, you will start to feel the benefits. Um, so I'll say neurologically, what's happening with this practice is that the part of your brain responsible for, if you've heard of, I'm sure you have, you've heard of like fight or flight, fight, flight, or freeze. So
Yeah.
when there's like a threat, yeah. So when you have a threat, the part of the brain called the amygdala releases your stress hormones and tells your muscles to tense, tells your breath to become a little bit more shallow, your heart pounds. That's you getting ready to deal with this threat. What happens for most of us when we encounter stress, it's not an actual physical threat in the way that when our brains were first developed, it was like it was like a saber-toothed tiger or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're experiencing a threat when we get an upsetting email, or we imagine that a friend is mad at us, or we're worried that there's going to be an unfavorable outcome to something that we care about. So with this consistent meditation practice, the part of the brain that sees a threat and responds immediately by stressing the body, that part of the brain is shrinking. And the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, that's responsible for rational decision making, is thickening. So neurologically speaking, that's what's happening. And the felt experience for most of my students, I would say after like a week of consistent practice, you likely will notice something right away. You might,
Wow,
especially if you've
that's
never done it before.
impressive.
Yeah, I would say like right away, especially if you're not used to sitting in silence, it might feel totally uncomfortable. And then if you kind of make peace with, oh, this is weird, my mind is doing so much stuff, and releasing this idea of needing to do it right, then we start to ease into it. And it's a practice. So like with anything, you're going to get better. And then you get excited by the fact that you're getting better.
And you continue to do it because you're getting excited about the fact that you're getting better. Yeah, that
Right.
makes sense. So during this crazy time, which is why I wanted to talk to you now, I think that there's sort of an overwhelming amount of anxiety in the air. No one really knows when this is going to end, how hospitals are going to run, if their loved ones are going to be okay. And there's sort of not much we can do from home, but one thing that we can do is practice mindfulness and meditation. So can you just suggest some good daily practices, daily routines that can sort of help people that are feeling really anxious during this time?
Yeah, I would say just being really, really kind to yourself, like being really sweet. So these are really real circumstances. This is not a situation like you're making a big deal out of, I don't know, what would be an example in my life? Like if I might run out of my coffee and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, I'm going to run out of my coffee. It's like, no, there are really real conditions and circumstances that are scary. So when we notice stress come up, when we notice anxiety, can we give ourselves space to feel that and just say, yeah, I'm not making this up. This is felt by everyone. So I'll say, so that is in line with this thing, self-compassion. And there's a lot of research on self-compassion right now. It's this thing that individually we're lacking and societally we're lacking. So 3 components of self-compassion as identified by this researcher, Kristen Neff at Harvard. Um, Awareness, just awareness of the way you're feeling, the way you might not be offering yourself tons of kindness. That's kind of the first thing. Allowing that, and just being like, here's what I'm feeling, some not great stuff. The second thing is shared humanity. So a lot of what exacerbates our anxiety is feeling as if only I'm experiencing this. No one else has ever experienced this before, you know? And so if we can bring to mind, especially in this circumstance, how many people, millions of people are feeling whatever the emotion you're feeling is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so you can repeat this thing just like me. So if you notice an emotion comes up, you can repeat just like me. And you might bring to mind someone who you know who's dealing with this, if you know that others are dealing with it as well. Or you might bring to mind people that you're reading about or seeing in the news, healthcare workers, essential workers, people who are struggling with something. And you might bring to mind, just like me, they're experiencing that. And then the third part of self-compassion is just kindness, self-kindness. So can you say something kind to yourself about what you might be experiencing? And if some of us sometimes don't have access to some kind language for ourselves, we might just, be looping on beating ourselves up or what we should have done differently, or oh my God, you're so ungrateful. Look how much you have. Can you offer that kindness to the people who might be experiencing this? Like identifying in that second part, shared humanity. What would you say to a friend going through this? Or what would a friend or a loved one say to you who might offer you a sense of like, you're doing okay, you know?
Okay, that makes sense. So I think now is the perfect time to sort of segue into our meditation lesson. So because I've never done it before, I'm not exactly sure what to do. Should I sit on the ground, on my bed?
What's your setup? What do you have?
So I can put a blanket on the ground and do that, or I have my bed right behind me and I could sit on that. Either is
What are
perfect.
you sitting on right now?
A
The
chair.
floor? Oh, great. Chair's great.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So that's part of what I think scares people about meditation is they're like, I've got to find a seat on the floor and cross my legs and hold this posture super stiff for the whole time. That's not true. So
Good, good
we,
to know.
if we're being traditional about it, there are traditional postures. So if you ever see the Buddha, you will see him seated, usually with his legs folded, and his hands might be placed in what's called a mudra, so touching thumb and forefinger. But again, that's more of a spiritual tradition. So because we're practicing mindfulness meditation, we can sit however feels comfortable. What I would say is if you're sitting on a chair, so I am sitting on a cushion on the floor, but I practice often sitting in a chair. Or if you sit with a lot of physical tension and you want this to feel restorative and relaxing, just lie down. Like lie down on your bed, lie down on your floor, whatever. I would say if you're choosing to sit seated, looks like you have lovely like alignment right now. So that's great. We want to like feel the sits bones on the chair so we can shift our weight from side to side and try to feel like the bones in the sits bones. And then we'll like gradually just find the midpoint here. So this is like your stable base. So the idea when you take your posture is that you're coming into a sense of integrity in the body, an idea that if you're sitting in this sort of, what would we call this? Like structured way. If you're lying down, just go lie down, give your body a break. That's so nice. If we're finding this, we want to sit with a sense of integrity, that your spine and your body can hold you. So we want to find our backs away from the back of the chair a little bit. We want to find our feet flat on the floor. Our hands can be placed on the thighs. Palms down will offer the most support for the upper body. And if you want to figure out where to place your hands on the thighs, you can just raise them at the elbows and then just let them drop. So my hands are like a few inches shy of my knees. You can also exaggerate this. So if you place your hands on your knees, you'll start to notice that your shoulders come forward. If you bring your hands too far back towards your hips, you'll start to notice that your shoulder blades are crunching in the back and your shoulder is like your chest is super expanded. So we're finding the midpoint here. Your chin is going to be slightly tucked, which for us, it's like a different thing because you're finding the eye line of me in your screen. So once you start to practice, just know that we want to be almost feeling the head like floating atop the topmost vertebra. So you might feel like the length in the back of the neck, which brings the chin gently tucked, and you'll feel your eyesight just land kind of out over the horizon. We'll practice with the eyes closed though. So that's our base, our hands, our shoulders, our heads, our chins. And then I think we're off to the races as far as like just allow the eyes to close and then we'll begin our practice. So I'll just name up top. We'll practice for, is the upper end of that 8 to 12 minutes. Is that okay for us?
That sounds perfect.
Okay, so we'll aim for 12 minutes. For folks at home, I'm looking into this camera. For folks at home, just know if this feels really challenging for you, this is the upper end. And we'll talk a little bit after about like, how would I do this at home? What am I aiming for? So if this starts to feel challenging, just know you're sitting for longer than you would need to every day, even once you have an experienced practice. So just take this on and allow, again, with a mindfulness practice, awareness and non-judgment. So you've taken your seat. I'm just going to set up what the practice is, and then we'll do it. So with this practice, it's a concentration practice. In a meditation, we, broadly speaking, have two buckets: concentration and contemplation. So a concentration practice is when we are bringing our awareness. This is just your attention, right? So if you take a minute right now to just notice where your awareness is, it might be on me, it might be on what I'm saying, or the image of me. Your awareness might be on your body. It might be on your own thoughts and fears. Oh my God, am I going to do this right? How long is this going to take? I hope the recording doesn't go out, something like that, you know? So we notice where we've placed our awareness. And what we do in this meditation is we just bring it back. When we've noticed the awareness drift to thought, which I will tell you, I can maybe keep my awareness on the breath. That's where we want to place it, on the breath. I can maybe keep my awareness on my breath for 3 breaths before I notice it's like off somewhere else. And then it might be off somewhere else for minutes, tens of minutes, like however the day is going. So what I'm trying to do when I notice that my awareness has gone from the physical sensation of my breath, I'm bringing it back to where I feel the breath in the body. And that is a moment of mindfulness. And when I do that, I want to be really nice. I want to, rather than saying like, I'm the worst meditator, I knew this wasn't going to go right, I probably should just stop this right now. We want to bring it back and be like, look at me doing this meditation that I've never done before, you know? So sweetness is what my teachers say. So take your posture, allow your eyes to close. And what might happen for some of us if we've had long days, when we close our eyes, this might feel a little bit vulnerable. We might noticing some fluttering in the lids. And just allow that. And then what can feel like almost luxurious is if you imagine your eyes behind your closed lids, so many muscles in the eyes. Can you just invite the muscles in your eyes to release? Maybe even taking a slightly deeper inhale and exhale. And from here, right at the top of our practice, we can just notice any thoughts, notice any resistance, any fears. We can also notice any physical discomfort. And so at the top of your practice, if it feels good, if you're already noticing physical discomfort, you can roll your shoulders a little bit. You can roll your head around. If you're noticing some agitation or extra energy, you can make some fists. So you'll make some fists and you'll squeeze the fists for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then release. Maybe noticing how the hands feel. And then with the eyes closed, our awareness of sound may become heightened. So just taking a moment to listen. And maybe acknowledging that it's pretty rare that we would ever just close our eyes and do nothing but listen. For most of us, the only time we close our eyes and do nothing is when we're going to sleep. So can we be curious? What do you hear? And maybe seeing how many different sounds can you hear? And maybe once you've noticed the sound, you might just label it. The mind likes to know what's going on. And so labeling, birds or voices, and then just moving on. And we will bring our awareness of sound into the body by taking 3 slightly deeper breaths all together and listening for the sound of your own inhale and exhale. So with this inhale and exhale, inhale and exhale, and we'll hold at the top of this breath. So you'll inhale, hold, and exhale. As the breath returns to the body at its natural or maybe slightly deepened pace, just seeing if you can bring your awareness to where the breath enters and exits the body. So noticing if you're breathing through the nose or the mouth. And on this inhale and exhale, seeing how can you tell? What's the physical sensation at the nostrils or the lips? What do you notice? So there might be temperature. And if we want to heighten this sensation, we can lick the lips and take a couple of breaths through the mouth. And maybe seeing if you can notice which is cooler, the inhale or the exhale. And if breathing through the mouth, you might even detect a taste here as the breath travels over the tongue. If breathing through the nose, you might detect a scent as the air travels through the nasal passage. And seeing if you can feel the breath as it travels down the throat. And maybe inviting a softening of the muscles in the throat. You might also notice, the throat is where we store a ton of tension. This is where if we try to clamp down on emotions or things we want to say, it can feel like a tightening. So with this next inhale and exhale, maybe offering a release here. Yeah. And now seeing if you can notice the breath as it arrives in the chest. And we likely can't feel temperature here at the chest. There's no taste and there's no scent, but there's probably movement. So if we want, we can place a hand at the chest and just notice if there's movement under the palm. This might feel faint, but we might be able to feel a gentle rise of the chest on the inhale and relaxing down on the exhale. And we might see if we can feel the breath a little bit deeper, maybe in the belly. And same thing, we can bring a hand maybe just below the ribs, a little bit above the navel, and just seeing if you can sense even just a really light expansion on the inhale and relaxing back on the exhale. And if you're noticing tension anywhere else in the body, maybe in the shoulders, the shoulder blades, the hips, maybe even the feet, maybe seeing if with this next inhale and exhale, you can imagine your breath reaching those muscles, those joints, and just softening on the exhale, letting this feel like a sigh of relief. And for right now, there's nothing else that you have to do but breathe. And allowing this to be important. Yeah, allowing this to feel like, you're doing something. This is day one for some of this thing that can really help. So offering yourself, your best effort here, seeing how fully you can be aware of each inhale and exhale. And we will just take one final minute in silence. And when you notice your awareness drift from the breath to thoughts, to emotions, to physical discomfort, just remembering that all you have to do is take a slightly deeper inhale and exhale to return to yourself and to this moment. And allowing your awareness to just expand. So releasing the breath as your object of meditation and just noticing how you feel. And we'll close our practice by taking 3 slightly deeper breaths all together with this inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. And we'll hold at the top of this breath. So inhale, hold, and exhale. And just bringing some movement back to the fingers and the toes, stretching in a way that feels good. And gently allowing the eyes to float open.
Wow. That was really nice.
Yay, you did it. That was your first one, right?
That was my first time. Well,
How'd it?
I tried it once, but it was, I didn't realize there were different levels of classes, so I signed up for an advanced class, which was 60 minutes. And
Oh,
I did end up falling asleep. So that was my first time. That was my first time, and that was really amazing. Thank you so much.
oh, great. I'm glad.
Well, I really, really enjoyed that, and thank you so much for coming on. I think this video is going to be really useful for people forever, but right now especially. So yeah, thank you. That was really, really great, and I hope we
Yeah, my
can
pleasure.
again at some point in the future.
Yes, me too. Everyone be well. If you have questions about this, maybe we'll like post my Instagram or something if people
Yeah,
want to
that
message.
sounds like a great idea. I can
Okay,
definitely.
great. Yeah. And be well, folks. Be easy with yourselves. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you again. Have a good
You're
night.
welcome. Bye.